I have friends who work at a gas station. Friday night, instead of joining the group for a party, Darren and Sarah had to work the graveyard shift. What happened that night has left me shaken and too scared to ever go to a gas station at night. The fluorescent lights buzzed incessantly. The gas station was a relic of the 1980s, situated on a stretch of highway that felt like the edge of the world. It was dark outside. The moon was hidden behind thick clouds. The only light outside was from the faint halo of light from the parking lot. Darren glanced at Sarah, who was stacking candy bars near the register. She looked tense, her movements jerky. He couldn't blame her. Something about the graveyard shift always made him nervous. It wasn't just the drunks or the occasional weirdo looking for a bathroom. It was the way the shadows outside seemed to breathe. "Hey, you good?" Darren asked, trying to keep his tone casual. Sarah nodded but didn't look up. "Just tired." He let it drop and leaned against the counter, watching the security monitor. The cameras showed the aisles, the lot outside, and the stretch of pumps, all empty. Yet he couldn't stop thinking that something bad was about to go down. The bell over the door chimed and Darren turned sharply. A man shuffled in, his hoodie pulled low over his face. He reeked of gasoline and sweat. Darren's stomach twisted as the man lingered by the energy drinks, his movements too slow, too deliberate. "Can I help you?" Darren called, his voice steadier than he felt. The man didn't answer. Instead, he turned his head slightly, and Darren swore he saw the glint of something sharp in the man's hand. A knife? No, it was too long for that. It looked like a bone. Darren's throat went dry. He caught Sarah's eye and she froze, her hand gripping the edge of the counter. The man finally moved, walking toward the exit without taking anything. As he passed, Darren caught a whiff of something rancid, decay. Then he was gone, swallowed by the night. "Did you see?" Sarah started, but Darren held up a hand. The cameras flickered, the feed glitching for a moment before returning to normal. "Yeah," Darren muttered. "Let's just get through this shift." The hours dragged. The buzzing lights seemed louder and the shadows deeper. It was around 3 a.m. The store grew unbearably cold. Darren checked the thermostat. It read 68 degrees, but his breath misted in the air. He rubbed his hands together, unease knotting his stomach. "Darren!" Sarah's voice was barely above a whisper. He turned and saw her staring at the security monitor. The lot outside wasn't empty anymore. Figures, dozens of them, stood just beyond the edge of the light. They weren't moving, just standing there, their features obscured. "What the hell?" Darren breathed. The bell chimed. Darren spun around, but no one was there. The door hung open, swinging slightly in the wind. A low growl could be heard from the aisles. "Stay here," Darren whispered, grabbing the aluminum bat they kept under the counter. His legs felt like lead as he moved down the first aisle. The growl came again, louder this time. It wasn't human. He rounded the corner and froze. A creature hunched by the cooler, its skin pale and stretched tight over a skeletal frame. Its eyes were hollow and its mouth, lined with jagged teeth, dripped with something dark. It turned its head toward him and Darren stumbled back, a scream caught in his throat. The lights flickered and when they came back on, the creature was gone. But the growling wasn't. Sarah couldn't stop shaking. She'd seen the figures on the monitor, but now the screen was blank. Nothing but static. The open door let in a biting wind, carrying with it the faint stench of rot. She wanted to call for Darren, but her throat felt paralyzed. The words stuck. Then she heard a low, wet chewing sound. It came from the back of the store. Her stomach turned, but she forced herself to move, clutching the pepper spray she kept in her pocket. She peeked around the corner and nearly dropped it. Darren was on the floor, his bat lying uselessly at his side. The pale creature was on top of him, its teeth buried in his shoulder. Blood pooled around them, slick and black in the flickering light. "No!" Sarah screamed, the sound ripping from her throat. The creature's head snapped up, its hollow eyes locking onto her. It hissed, its mouth impossibly wide, revealing rows of serrated teeth. Darren's body convulsed beneath it, his eyes rolling back. Sarah ran. She didn't think, didn't plan. She just sprinted toward the exit, her breath catching in her throat. The bell chimed as she burst through the door, the cold air slicing her skin. She barely made it 5 steps before she skidded to a halt. The figures were closer now, their faces illuminated by the harsh, fluorescent light. Their features were grotesque, twisted, half human, half something else. They watched her with milky eyes, their mouths twitching as though trying to form words. Sarah backed toward the store, her chest heaving. The growling was behind her, now growing louder. She turned just in time to see Darren stumble out, his movements jerky, unnatural. His head lolled to the side and his mouth was smeared with blood. His eyes met hers, but they weren't his eyes anymore. They were empty black pits. "Sarah," he croaked, his voice distorted, guttural. "Run!" But she couldn't. The figures advanced, their shadows stretching toward her like claws. The last thing she saw before everything went black was Darren's broken, bloodied face grinning as the creatures closed in. The gas station stood silent as dawn broke, the fluorescent lights still buzzing. The aisles were empty, save for a trail of blood leading to the door. The cameras, still glitching, showed nothing but static. And just beyond the edge of the light, the figures waited.